and welcome to this week's Talking Royals. I'm Romilly Weeks and I'm joined by our royal editor Chris Ship and royal producer Lizzie Robinson to bring us all up to speed on the latest from Buckingham Palace and beyond. Welcome both. I'm really looking forward to this because it's been a while since I've talked about the royal family.
Well, I suppose we should tell viewers and listeners that actually once upon a time you kind of did the job that I do now, didn't you?
Yes, but it was quite a long time ago. And actually one thing that I did like, or one of the many things I liked about it, was summer was quite a quiet period for the royal family. So you got some time off because they all head up to Balmoral and they spend time with their family and do stuff up there.
We have kind of had that this year, but in previous years we've actually said to each other, what happened to all this quiet summer
this August bit
everyone used to talk about?
Right, there's still a lot going on.
Yeah.
And I mean, one of the things I know that the King was doing was entertaining the Prime Minister. And I always thought that that was a fascinating sort of element of both of their jobs. You know, here are two people who might not have that much in common and they get to spend a weekend together and we don't get much sort of insight into what they actually do until long after the event.
Yeah, you really want that. It's the kind of thing that Prime Ministers write about in their memoirs many sort of years later about going up to Balmoral in August or September.
So Keir Starmer was there actually last weekend.
Right.
He was spotted going to church. It's Crathy Kirk near Balmoral that they go to, and he was seen travelling there, and the King was also attending.
And you probably went up to Balmoral, didn't you, sometimes when you were doing this job?
No, I don't think
you did not make it up there.
Really? I think I went everywhere else, but I don't think I went
everywhere else. Did Sandringham, did Windsor, did Highgrove. Yes, exactly.
Exactly.
You
But
can
Theresa
see
May
why-
had that great story, sorry to interrupt, about Balmoral and dropping a piece of cheese. Do you remember
Yes,
that?
that's right. Yes, well, after the Queen died, and then she looked at me, and I looked at her.
Yes, exactly. And she put the
raised
cheese
her eye
back on the plate.
Who knew that Theresa May had such good comic timing as well? But that was very good. But yes, the Crathy Kirk, therefore, if you haven't actually been there, is literally just across the road from Balmoral. They always drive there because they've got to come down the driveway and out the gate and along the road. But yes, we saw the Prime Minister there, as Lizzie was just saying, but also we saw Kate, and you know, actually we've seen some very brief glimpses of the Princess of Wales over the summer. One was a video at the end of the Olympic Games. I think she did like a 4-second sort of well done in a video. But again, I think it's, you know, going back to that confidence we were probably feeling towards the end of last term, if we can call it that, that, you know, her chemotherapy is progressing well, and she certainly, to the untrained eye, you know, it looks pretty well, and but at the moment she still continues with her medical leave.
Yeah, I think, you know, we're not getting any kind of running commentary on the Princess of Wales. The last update we had was from her herself, that that message she said about how she's still undergoing treatment. She has those good days and those bad days, and we have seen her on a few public engagements. We saw her at Trooping the Colour, we saw her at Wimbledon, and as Chris says, she was up with the family at Balmoral, and we saw her going to Crathy Kirk, and in the video, which actually the video that she was in congratulating Team GB after the Olympics, the sort of the headlines weren't actually about Kate, they were about William.
Oh, about his facial hair.
His facial hair.
Yes. And well, interestingly, fun enough, William's done an engagement just today connected to his homelessness project, and guess what? Still got the facial hair.
The holiday beard.
Liking it.
Well,
holiday
liking it, or he couldn't be bothered to shave. Maybe he landed on an EasyJet flight late last night and didn't have time to shave. But yeah, I think he's sporting a...
It's in a relaxed side to the royal family on their summer holidays, and he's continued it back into public duties.
Will it still be there? Anyway, lots of people...
And with Kate, because I know people are still very interested in her and how she's doing, is the expectation that she is just going to quietly continue with her recovery, focus on her family, and we're really not going to hear much about how she is or the treatment?
I think the answer to that is we don't know. I mean, she could suddenly say next week, that's it, guys, I'm back to work, here I am, back at it. Yet, you know, and yet this could go on for many more months. No one actually knows. And I presume at any one time they could say, for example, William's got an Earth shot. What are we in now with Earth shot? Number 4, London, Boston, Singapore, and this one is Cape Town. And, you know, we don't know whether Kate's going to go with him or not. At the moment, it's not in any of the plans, if you like, but if she's fully back on the road to recovery, they might say, oh, yep, she's going to go with him. But all of that is not talked about or spoken about because nobody actually knows.
Yeah, the guidance and sort of talking to those close to the Princess of Wales is that, of course, it will all be on the advice of her medical team and how she's feeling. And I think, the feeling was before we went away for the summer that she was beginning to feel that she could, on those good days, do some engagements. We've seen her at a few things. And perhaps as we go into autumn, if she's feeling up to it and her doctors sign it off, we may begin to see her out and about on some public engagements. But I don't think we're going to suddenly see, bang, back to work on a full stream of engagement. She is still undergoing that preventative chemotherapy. And, I think, as they've said all along, her health comes first.
Of course, yeah, of course. And the King too, he's still receiving treatment, I understand, but he has been doing some important royal duties.
Well, yeah, he kind of, you can call it, broke into his summer holiday and made a special visit to Southport. I was there, and it's actually the first time I'd been in Southport since the dreadful events that happened there. For anyone listening who doesn't know about it, it was the town in the northwest of England where those 3 young girls lost their lives. And for me, the thing that I remember is the King stepped out of his car to look at all the floral tributes. And it's absolutely beautiful floral tributes where somebody comes along every night, some volunteers, and deadheads all the flowers and removes all the soft toys and things. Was just the 3 balloons sort of floating in the middle there. There was a number 9, a number 7 and a number 6 for the ages of the 3 girls who lost their lives that day. But the purpose of the King's visit there was not just to see the families of those who survived that attack, but also to thank the emergency services who one day would responding to a major incident like that, but then a day and a half later they were having bricks and all sorts of things thrown at them in those riots. So there was a lot for him to do there, and I think there was a lot of appreciation that he'd travelled from Balmoral to Southport to make that visit.
They often talk with the King about the sort of 5 C's that are the pillars of the King's work. So you've got the Commonwealth, the climate, culture, now cancer and raising awareness around that, but community is one of the big pillars of the King's work, and was when he was Prince of Wales, and he has done a lot of work around the area of community cohesion. So this would have been a really important visit to him, and they were very conscious and careful and sensitive with the timing of ensuring that when the King did go, that it was the right time, and that he went, and the royal family never want to sort of get in the way of the work that's being done or the emergency services. So they were really careful, weren't they, with the timing of that visit.
Romilly, from when you did it, the amount of kind of logistics involved in a royal operation, the amount of police they have to have there. Well, the King was never going to go the day after. They were still cleaning the streets because the police work was, he himself would say, much more important than being there for one of his visits. So he waited, it was about 2 weeks after the event, I think, when he went.
But he was being kept sort of fully up to date, even though he had to wait that period of time to be able to go
and actually, one of the things I do remember from doing the Royals is, of all the parts of the job, doing those visits at times of great tragedy and great suffering, it really matters to the people that they talk to.
And you
they
go
feel
on,
recognised and seen, I suppose.
100%. You go on to remember those moments. I distinctly remember the time that the Queen went into one of those hospital wards after the Manchester terror attack, the Ariana Grande attack. I remember when the Queen went to visit survivors of the Grenfell Tower fire. You just remember those moments. And I think for the King, that Southport visit was on a level with that. Actually, he met the families of the girls who lost their lives in London, not in Southport, because they had travelled down to London because they were invited to the very last concert by Taylor Swift.
Right.
Again, if anyone doesn't know, the place where they lost their lives was at a Taylor Swift themed event, and so the King met those families, and that would have been a very difficult meeting. One of the families hadn't yet buried their little girl, and he met them at Clarence House in London the day after he was in Southport.
But there was a bit of an update from the Queen about the King's health as well.
Yeah, so we, as I said, with the Princess of Wales, we don't get running commentary on their health. We never have. I'm sure you remember when you covered the beat that they try, and they don't want it to be. The more they feed, the more they have to keep giving you those
a lot less in your day. I mean, obviously, the fact we know about cancer and prostate operations and all the rest of it, in your day, they would have said he was in hospital with an infection, wasn't it?
Yeah. The Queen was at a cancer centre, a new cancer centre in Bath this week, her first engagement back after the summer break, and she was asked during this visit, how is the King doing, and she said he's doing very well. And I think people, that was the headline for everybody listening, because the updates are so few and far between.
Actually, you spoke to one of the nurses there, didn't you? The lead cancer nurse. So this is a brand new cancer centre, stated that it's beautiful, and if you can call it that. But even the patients were saying it is a really, really beautiful kind of new centre. But one of the leading cancer nurse there was telling you about how when people go on a cancer journey, it's not just the patient; it's the close family as well.
Close family, and I think while the visit meant a lot to everyone at the hospital, of course, having the Queen there does mean a lot, but it was particularly poignant because the Queen understands what it is to support somebody that is going through cancer treatment. And, the patients I spoke to, the staff I spoke to, all said that, and this is what Ros Helps said.
So she's now coming from the point of view of somebody being affected by cancer. And as I've said earlier, it's not just the person going through the treatment, it's the family and the support around them that is also affected. And I think sometimes that's not really thought about in the whole patient's journey, that sometimes the focus is on the patient only, but actually families are affected. So she'll be at home supporting her husband in the same way as any other family are supporting their loved one.
And also had, during the visit, the Queen met patients that were receiving chemotherapy, and we spoke after the Queen had departed to some of them about what it meant to them to have the Queen come and visit them, and this is what one of them told me.
It's really nice, actually. I mean, obviously she's going through it with her family on both sides, so it's like, yeah, I think it's really nice, it's really good.
Actually, Sandy there, who was speaking to us afterwards, was just having her chemotherapy while sat in the chair, and actually it's a reminder that's what the King effectively goes through. He's an outpatient in a cancer unit as well, when we think he has his treatment once a week or once a fortnight in London, and goes through something very similar to that. So I think that would have been quite a moment for Queen Camilla to visit that centre.
I get the feeling, I don't know what you think, but not only is the Queen doing this really important job of supporting the King through his treatment, and that is a very difficult thing for her as well as him, but also that she's having quite a golden period as a royal. It's a new role for her. She's doing a lot of picking up the jobs that the others can't do because of their illnesses, and she's doing it pretty well, isn't she?
I'd have to agree with you, and I'm sure it came as a surprise as much to you as to anyone else that here you've got a woman who was in the mid-1990s often referred to as the most hated woman in the country, effectively at times in March, April, May, when the King was still not doing public visits. She was keeping the royal show on the road. It was all down to Camilla. William wasn't available because he was looking after Kate. Kate had her time off as well. It was all about Queen Camilla, and I think she has been doing a remarkable job. And let's remember, when we go on about the King's age, she's older than him. She's, I'm about to pause and say, double check her age in my head, 77 now? Yes, and Lizzie's nodding at me, 77. And so she's like a year and a half older than the King, and yet she's got support, blah, 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 got an office working around her, but that's still quite gruelling. And they're going to Australia soon as well. And, the Queen hates flying. Queen Camilla hates flying. There's not many ways you can get to the other side of the world apart from in a plane. So, I think it's quite a heavy workload. Like this week, how many jobs did she have on this week? Was it 4 or 5 jobs?
Yeah, I mean, she is busy pretty much every single day this week. Bar Monday, every day she's got an engagement on all around the country. So she's sort of back to work and hit the ground running. But as Chris said, she really has kept the royal show on the road, but without any sort of great fanfare. She's just sort of got on with it. And I think people have really warmed to that.
And it's kind of how she, from all those plans of how do we reintroduce Camilla to public life, since the mid-1990s, I think her policy has just been keep your head down, get on with it, choose some really good causes, Battersea Dogs Home, domestic violence. She's, shone a light on what was a very much an untalked about subject previously. And, that kind of work eventually does get recognition. And
we don't have all that much time left, but we can't end this podcast without talking about Prince Harry, because the papers have been filling August with acres of speculation about what his plans might be. Is there a reconciliation on the cards? Is he really thinking about coming back to the UK, or is that all rubbish?
Well, listen, Harry and Meghan have been quite busy. Did you notice about the Colombia visit? I'm just interested in what you thought about that, because it felt very much like, Harry and Meghan are on a royal tour, but they're not representing the UK government or the royal family, or none of them have any kind of connection to Colombia. We didn't quite know why they were there, apart from the fact that the vice president had invited them.
I thought exactly the same. It's very much out of the royal playbook, isn't it? You go and visit another country, there's a lot of pomp, there's a lot of interest in it, but what actually did they achieve? What's their purpose? And also, just as a more general sort of thought, what is their plan going forward that is distinct to them and is not looking backwards at their former royal role?
And that is the big question, isn't it? Because all the publicity that Harry and Meghan have had in recent years have been looking back at their exit or their time in the royal family, what went wrong, Spare, how much Harry didn't like his stepmother and all this stuff. I kind of think now, if they are trying to look forward, what did Colombia tell us about their future? Is this, don't forget they had this visit to Nigeria, similar kind of, quote-unquote royal tour earlier in the year. So, and then there's all this stuff. And Harry and Meghan's people tell us, no, not true, Harry's life is in California. But there's been all this stuff in America that, in the newspapers, that Harry's wanting to come back to the UK.
Yeah, reports
really,
that
after everything?
Plotting a return from US exile. That was all over the Sunday papers. But as Chris says, it's our understanding that, you talk to people close to Harry, his life is in America, he's happy in America, and he is not, rumours of a return are entirely false. That is not true. However, he was back in the UK last week because he attended the funeral of Lord Robert Fellows, who is married to Lady Jane Fellows. Lady Jane Fellows was the sister of Princess Diana, also one of Queen Elizabeth's former private secretaries.
Yes, I'm just trying to do the connection in my head. So, this was his mother's sister, his aunt then. There we go. It took me a long time to work that out. It's his aunt. So, and that was her husband. Yeah. So his uncle.
Harry came over for the funeral, which was in Norfolk.
The body language wasn't great, was it?
So Prince William was there. It's well documented that the relationship between William and Harry is incredibly fractured. That remains the case. There is no clear signs of any reconciliation anytime soon. And all the reports said that, yes, they were in the same room, which for some might seem like progress. They didn't talk at all.
Which you remember earlier in the summer, Harry didn't come over for the Duke of Westminster's wedding, that big, lavish wedding up in the northwest of England. Harry didn't come to that because William was an usher, and they all agreed between them, and this is all sides will tell you this, that everyone kind of agreed it would be a bit difficult if Harry and William were there. It would take the focus away from the bride and groom, so let's not.
Harry is very close, though, to Diana's siblings. Lady Jane Fellows and Earl Spencer they both attended St Paul's when he had his Invictus Games anniversary service there. People magazine had a report that Harry stayed at Althorpe, which is Earl Spencer's residence. So he remains incredibly close to that side of the family, even though his relationship with the royal family remains incredibly strained.
Well, we could talk about this all afternoon, frankly, but I think I've got to stop and go and record some headlines or something. And that is it from us at Talking Royals this week. Chris and Lizzie, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Do keep up to date with us talking all things royal each week by subscribing wherever you get your podcasts or watching us on ITVX, and have a look back through our catalogue for a range of royal topics. Until next time, as ever, thanks for joining.